have to look into how do they get away with this stuff. And now, you know, people need to talk about the system itself and what it's doing to people that have stuck inside this prison system for 50 and 60 years, even though they might be sick.
Hang on, Reverend. We got one of those hard breaks, but we'll make it as short as we possibly can, and we'll be right back on World Crisis Radio. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. We have got a couple of minutes left in the time allotted to Reverend Pinckney. So, Reverend, why don't you continue? We were talking about Aramark and the terrible conditions.
And here's my plan. It's time that we set up. They got headquarters in Philadelphia and Detroit. It's time that we set up and protest the food conditions here at this prison through Aramark, and also what they do to the school system also. The food is so bad, like I said last week, we had over 125 people that got food poisoning. Over 125 people. We had time when they had magnets in the food. We had a situation where the food fell on the floor, and they took a shovel and picked it up and put it back in the pot and gave it to the people. So we have to let people know that we're not going to take this crap anymore. Every single day that we should be talking about. Also, here's an issue that people all around the world can understand. These people, the young guys who had committed crimes when they was 12, 13, and 14 years old, they didn't actually pull the trigger, but they call them juvenile lifers. And they would never get a chance to ever be outside this prison system unless the people take a stand. They believe that, you know, that as a young child, that you should have a second chance. And here in the state of Michigan, they definitely do not believe that. So that's one of the issues that I'm really fighting for. I'm trying to get people to move. I'm trying to get people paroled out of here, commutations and stuff like that. I'm going to be working on a lot of different things to get people moving and to get people on the outside. I decided what I'm going to do is get me about 10, 15 churches, and we're going to go to Lansing, and we're going to lobby. And not only
you have 1 minute remaining.
We're going to get a chance to talk to the Senate and the House and get a chance to get things moving around here. And this is something that we can do. But listen, I only got 1 minute left or less. Those of you who are out there, please go to BH Banco. And like I said, we have all the transfer we need except the February 27th and the April 14th. And those of you done, let me thank you all first for doing a wonderful job. You have been donating. You've been doing wonderful things. But we down to the last two, and we definitely need your help. I can't do anything. I'm locked up. I can't supply any income for my family and stuff like that. But we can do something if we stand together and fight together. So those of you out there, go to bhbanco.org. It's right there. And Webster, I probably got about 10 seconds left. Let me thank you again, for allowing me to be on your show. It's a thrill, and I tell you this. And get a chance to hear the news that you gave me today about Italy and stuff like that. I'm excited, but make sure you send that information.
Thank you for using
Already sent, Reverend. Already sent. So, again, that will all be available on BH Banco. It's up on the Free Pinckney website. It's going to be up at tarpley.net and others, right? So that will be all over the world. So let's see where we stand now. We want to go back to Athens and Michael Chiotinas. I'm wondering if the control room can tell me how many minutes we have left in this segment. All right, fine. Let's go back to Athens.
Yes. So
are we set to go? So sorry about that, Michael. You know how it is. And today we had some good news for the Rev.
It's very important to hear from Reverend Pinckney. Now, to get back to where I was yesterday, the IMF said it's working out on the negotiations. Well, good riddance. This could be an easy emotional response, but besides that, it is a very interesting event. In order to see what that means, first of all, we need reliable information, which we don't really have. And even then, the players in this game are too many. And the whole thing is too complicated. But we need to try and simplify it. There's a theory that the IMF is simply trying to push the Greek government to accept pension cuts and the like, the measures that the IMF is shown to be pushing for. What I see is that the Germans want the IMF to be a part of the Greek program because its methods are used as a technocratic excuse to destroy the Greek economy. But the IMF needs its reputation to rebound, and the possibility of a Greek default on the IMF could demonstrate yet another IMF failure. So my first impression is that the IMF is walking out to appear as if it's none of its fault, which could only mean that the IMF believes the Germans are ready to go as far as a Greek default on June 30th. Watch out for June 30th. That's right. The date on which Greece has to pay 1.7 billion euros to the IMF that the Greek government doesn't have. Now, let me tell you a few things. There were 750 million that needed to be repaid in the middle of May. The Greek government seemed determined not to pay. The IMF comes in and allows Greece to take 700 million from a special account held in the Greek central bank in the name of the IMF. So Greece repaid the IMF with IMF money. Then, June 5th, again, 300 million due to the IMF. Greece says, I'm not paying. The IMF accepts a request to bundle up all June payments and send them June 30th. That's 1.7 billion. So, in fact, there has already been a default twice, but everyone acted as if it never happened. What does that tell us? Can they really afford a Greek default? I don't think they do. And I don't mean it in a financial way. I mean it in a geopolitical way. An assumption could be that the US government is afraid that a Greek default could send Greece in the hands of Russia. We can perhaps see a dispute between the US and Germany. The US wants Germany to be a subcontractor of NATO policy in Eastern Europe, while Germany wants to play its own game in the region. But the fact is that sanctions against Russia and the situation in Ukraine are far more important for the US than Greece right now. Greece is important geostrategically, but Ukraine is 100 times more important. You see what I'm saying? The U.S.
You could also argue it's going to be hard to extend bailout money to Yatsenyuk, right? We just had Yatsenyuk here in Washington this week. It's going to be politically hard to say here, Ukraine, not a European Union member, not a NATO member, you get 10 billion or 15 billion or whatever, but Greece, you get nothing, and you're driven out.
Yeah.
Hang on 1 second. We'll ponder that for a second. We'll be back in a minute on World Crisis Radio. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. We've got a couple of minutes left with Michael Chiotinis in Athens. Is it the case that the IMF has pulled out of the talks with Greece as a matter of buck passing? In other words, trying to hang the responsibility, if there is a worldwide banking panic, trying to pin that on Germany. And what seems to me is the Germans want to have this low wage, or at least certain monopolies do, this low wage area of Poland, the Balkans, Ukraine. They have that in their own country. It's called Hartz 4. If you're on Hartz 4, you're living on, 500 or 600 euros plus some wretched little job you might get from time to time. And that's it, month after month.
Yes. So what I'm seeing is that the U.S. would play a soft approach towards Greece. It would try and steer Greece. Germany is trying to play the hard, oppressive approach. Violent subjugation by political humiliation of Syriza and economic bullying. Could Germany have a plan B? As a plan B, the possibility to amputate Greece from and cauterize the rest of the Eurozone in some way to preserve it? Maybe, but I think it's too messy. I don't see it happening. Schäuble thinks he can bully his way to political domination until the end of June. Right now, the talk is about yet another extension, 9 months, with some financing to avoid default and fewer conditionalities, but still in a climate of uncertainty and economic strangulation. I don't think it makes sense. There can be no more extension of this insanity. Someone could argue that sometimes you need to destabilize the enemy's timetable. You need to impose your own timetable. And
that is a principle of military thinking. Never let an oligarch attack you according to his timetable. You've got to knock them off balance. You've got to do a counterattack and somehow screw up the rigidity, because that's the thing. The oligarch is rigid, right? And if you can be flexible, you defeat him.
The thing is that I don't see a strategic retreat in these terms as the right thing right now. I don't see how retreat could have any benefit for Europe. I only see an offensive approach as having chances of success. Also, Turkey is right now an issue because Erdogan has lost all the almighty status.
Right. We covered the story. We're very happy with that. We'd like to see that go on a little bit.
Yes, the Kurdish issue is a huge internal problem for Erdogan. Turkey has shown that whenever it has internal problems, it tries to change direction, provoke war episodes to export its problems. And there have already been provocations in Greek islands, but so we need to see this as part of the whole picture. And this gives us a very complicated situation.
Okay. So I guess let's leave it at that for this week. I think we've done our usual overview, and we'll be coming at you next week, Michael. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Now let me just tick off some of these things on the U.S. presidential campaign. Scott Walker, he is the favorite candidate of Koch and Koch. He's not going to declare himself until July. Boy, think about Jeb Bush stretching the law, violating the law. Scott Walker, that famous reactionary union buster, is in another league. He's like the India rubber man. Patrick Healy and Monica Davey. Behind Scott Walker, a long-standing conservative alliance against unions. I have to laugh. When this guy was on Fresh Air, he said, well, he's a conservative, but he's actually rather extreme. He's a reactionary. He is a fascist. Patrick Healy, come on. Stop giving these people the gift of calling them conservatives when they're union-busting reactionaries or much worse. Anyway, you get that entire thing in the New York Times of June 8th. A lot of detail about who's paying for this character, Walker. The Romney cattle call. Romney has got his cattle call going on in Park City, Parley's Park. Parley Pratt, quite a raunchy character, polygamist. They like Rubio. Well, why wouldn't they like Rubio? Rubio was a Mormon for several years of his life. Is Rubio still a Mormon? Is he a crypto Mormon? Well, one way to figure it out is start counting how many wives he has and see what you get. Then, Diabolorum. We put out one of our classic exposés this week. I hope you're getting the morning briefing of the Tax Wall Street Party United Front Against Austerity. You can send in your request, and you get a free subscription. What about this charade that Diabolorum Santorum has? He's not of the saints; he's of the devils. When he talks about a minimum wage, well, there's an anti-Santorum body of analysis, right? Some Oppo research online. This goes back to his campaigns. Why won't Santorum help Pennsylvania workers earn a living wage? Santorum has repeatedly voted against increasing the minimum wage. He did at one point propose a token increase, but excluding all the workers, 10 million or so, who live on tips